Hello, everyone. I just want to make sure I'm gonna
Yeah,
check.
it's an audio.
Excuse me. Apologize. I was gonna see if I'm live. It looks like I'm live on X. Let's see if I'm live on YouTube. Because I don't know how else. Okay, it looks like I'm live there as well. Let's see Facebook. There as well. And I was asked about Instagram. It looks like they said to do Instagram. Huh. I wonder if you can go live there. Anyway, thanks for being here. I asked people to be here today from my email list, and also Nick, thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. All right, guys, I'm just going to commemorate the atrocity of 9/11. It's a date that has affected me in a very serious way, career-wise. I dreamed of writing and drawing superheroes, right? And after that, I said, well, I have to respond to the atrocity. So, Jimmy, glad you're here. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. So after 9/11, I figured if I'm going to respond to this, I'm probably going to lose my chance, my lifelong dream to write and draw superheroes for the mainstream superheroes, and that's a price you got to pay. It is what it is. But I'm going to go. I printed out some sheets here. I still don't know how to be blunt, how to make the screens. When you check out when you put art on the screen and videos and articles. I'm still learning. But I did want to go through some pages that I printed out, such as this. This guy named Tariq Ramadan, right? Tariq Ramadan. He's a renowned scholar, according to the New York Times, in their article, noting that he was just convicted of rape. He had at least 5 accusations of rape by women. He was a scholar in the UK, and he's the grandson of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. He's a stealth jihadist. And I'm going to read you what I wrote here. I said, one second. I just read that Tariq Ramadan, this is a few years ago. This is my book, Peaceful Death Threats. Nicholas, glad you're here. Thanks, man. This was from my book, Peaceful Death Threats, where I got death threats from over Muhammad cartoons, right? Of my Muhammad cartoons, and then I published all the death threats I got from Muhammad cartoons alongside new Muhammad cartoons that were inspired by these death threats. Anyway, so this is my cartoon of Tariq Ramadan, who was just convicted in Europe. I forgot which country, because he's been going all around Europe. He's been basically poisoning everything he's gone to. He was, again, the New York Times called him a renowned Islamic scholar, convicted of rape. Think about that sentence, right? Renowned Islam scholar, convicted of rape. Anyway, so I just read that Tariq Ramadan, this is, again, 2017 probably, who I drew as Muhammad here, and who's the grandson of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hassan al-Banna, just got hit with his 5th rape charge. So just to show you that these renowned scholars always end up being, almost always, hey Mike, wits end, yeah. The old fanzine, is that what it would be? That Ditko was published in? Yeah, Mike, yeah, this is, I'm going to discuss 9/11 and the Unavenged. That's really, I try to commemorate 9/11 every year with new cartoons. I just did this cartoon, today. It's Muhammad, the warlord who founded Islam and jihad, and he's about to pay a price for it. In my fantasy, someone's coming up to do him in. Could it be a Pigman? Maybe. Also, I drew this, another drawing of Muhammad. Anyway, so this is another thing that I did. I published this in one of my books. It could have been, the last one could have been Islam Bitches, maybe. And I drew this with my middle finger on my iPad. The reason why I did that was because I had just found out that the French teacher who was trying to showcase free speech to his students showed the Muhammad cartoons. Shortly thereafter, he got his head cut off in the middle of the street. Just for showing Muhammad cartoons. Not for drawing them, just for showing them. So as I wrote here, I said, I just drew this new Muhammad cartoon right before going to print. It's for Samuel Paty, if that's how you pronounce it, the French teacher who was beheaded by a Muslim for showing his students Muhammad cartoons in a lesson on free expression. I drew it with my middle finger on my iPad. We're far past the point of any Muslim seriously telling any of us, hey, it's about respect, Once human beings are slaughtered over cartoons, fuck you and your respect. It's over. It's over. Even before that was over, but especially now. So I'm going to go through some images that I picked. This is from my book Propaganda, which I just found a stack of, actually. And I made a deal. I made an offer to everyone that if they buy them, they can get index card drawings of Pigman, which I put together. It was a short deal. And this is from that book, Propaganda. It's basically a Pigman finding his way into the mountains of the what was it called? The Hindu Kush. The Hindu Kush. It's a mountain range, a massive mountain range cutting through India and Pakistan and the Islamic world. So I have Pigman entering the rat cave, right? And his shadow is supposed to represent the towers, because that's what led him here, the Twin Towers. And there's another image of Pigman connected with the Twin Towers here as well. This is, again, from Propaganda. It's my book, 2009. It was basically me trying to work on some drawings as I was studying Islam and Jihad and my story, getting it right. And I was trying to... I'm going to read your comments, so if anyone wants to chime in also, as Mike just did, about where you were 9/11, what's your thoughts on it, and 23 years later, where we are, And again, where we are is that they've gone unavenged. The victims of 9/11 have gone unavenged. I don't give a shit what anyone says. I know people say, oh, we've more than avenged them. Absolutely not. It's a lie. The Islamic enemy is still alive and active. 150 people were murdered last week alone across the world in the name of Islam. So that's Pigman turned into, Twin Tower shadow. This was an homage to the heroes of Flight 93, which these days rats will deny that it ever happened because they're rats, But it's him saying the rallying cry that they said right before they entered the cockpit to bring the plane down. That the plane that they were on, they were going to likely, very, very likely, fly that back into the Capitol and kill politicians. And I'll tell you one thing, if they did do that, as I mentioned in another live stream, if they did do that, I think the reaction to 9/11 would have been far greater, let's just say. Because they, politicians in a lot of ways, a lot of scumbags don't give a rat's ass about us. But man, when it comes to them and their lives and their families and their power, they probably would have went to massive war, overdid it, more than we would have, have even expected them to. Another image, Pigman, instead of Allah Akbar, America Akbar, taking an American flag and doing a jihadist N. Let me just read what Mike wrote, and again, anyone wants to chime in about 9/11, your thoughts, and where we are today. So Mike says, I was 16 years old on the 11th of September, 2001. My mother woke me up and said the World Trade Center was hit. I thought to myself, what's the World Trade Center? Yeah. I took it seriously when I heard the Pentagon was hit. Well, 9/11 caused the Patriot Act, and that's why people get deplatformed now. Yeah. I mean, the Patriot Act, that was their way of trying to show the American public, hey, look, we're doing something. Yeah, just wipe out the enemy by any means necessary. And I mean nukes as well. I mean that. Whatever it takes, wipe the bastards out. End jihad. Don't bullshit. So that was their way of saying, well, we're taking it seriously. Watch. Yeah. Adding new laws that the laws we had already would have taken care of the problem. The presidential powers would have already taken care of the problem. Here's another issue. This was published in, I think, two of my books, Propaganda, and one of the, one of the Peaceful Death Threats books. And basically, it's my take that while the enemy and average Muslims and everyone in the Islamic hellholes, right, refer to their ideology as Islam, we, idiots in the West, refer to it as anything other than Islam. They say Islam, we say Islamic fundamentalism, Islamic totalitarianism, Islamic extremism, political Islam, Islamofascism, radical Islam, Islamo-Nazism, Bin Ladenism, which was a horrific, terrible word that Christopher Hitchens created. He was probably extra drunk that night because he was good on this, and that was a terrible thing because he was trying to bring it all down to one individual, as if you take him out, you end jihad. No, you took him out, they're still killing. Islamofascism, I've heard that one, Islamism, etc. You know, the TSA exists to rob luggage, not to stop hijackers. Hey, again, our stupid government creates these new agencies just to try to show us that we're doing something. Right? You feel better? You feel safer? No. So long as the bastards are there, still slaughtering human beings across the world. The initial response I had right after 9/11 was to write and draw a Captain America story. Until it hit me, I was very naive. I said, of course not going to let me do it. I mean, I wanted Captain America to live up to their super soldier, whereas it would be Captain America, right, in small letters, super in small letters, and soldier in big letters, meaning he's going to use that shield lethally, in lethal ways, to hunt down the bastards and kill them. So it's basically from 9/11 to their hellholes in the desert. That was the thinking. And then, of course, I realized it's impossible. They would never let me do that. I'm an amateur cartoonist at that point anyway. So that's when I started to say, okay, what kind of enemy would this enemy, what's the last kind of enemy this enemy would want to face? An ex-Muslim who knows their language, who would try to wipe them out ruthlessly. This is something, two moments from Pigman number 1. That's Frank Warner watching Americans falling from the towers. And I say, ex-Muslim Islam critic Frank Warner watches in horror as his fellow Americans fall to their deaths on 9/11. And he's like, no. And he says, as was relayed, we scream, they don't. Because it was relayed in some of the books I read on 9/11 that those on the ground were watching those who were falling. And if you recall, sometimes it was more than one person falling. There was 4 or 5 people, co-workers, just trying to, in their last moments of life, trying to connect with their co-workers, at least not go down alone, right? What a horrific thing to even think about. But that's what they did, some of them. Anyway, so we scream, they don't, and then Pigman throws Osama bin Laden. He catches that rat in a cave, in a rat hole, and he screams and screams and screams, just to show the contrast. The innocent did not scream. The guilty screamed his head off all the way down. And then, it says later, as Pigman, he makes the one behind that horror scream in horror. And Pigman says there, he goes, now that means peace, at least for a moment. The whole Islam means peace bullshit. So yeah, guys, if you want to chime in. I would appreciate it. I'd like to read more of your comments. Mike says, I think the saying is, in the West you have all the clocks, but Islam has all the time. I've heard that one, yes. That was even in one of my poster images in Propaganda. And it was a clock, It was Pigman holding a clock to try to, break that idea as well. This is Pigman in his secret identity as Frank Warner. This is his book, one of his books, The Post-Islamic World. And he gets invited on the show to talk about it, and he gets ambushed by his old writing partner, Muhammad, Dr. Muhammad, who is super jihad. And so they go at it, and in their secret identities as well. And they work together on these books. And again, it was just my take. What's that rat bastard from CNN? He always has a constipated look on his face. Zawahiri? Not Zawahiri. Anyway, he had a book called The Post-American World, which, of course, Obama, when he was president, held it very clearly so the cameras could catch it, because that's the world he wants. He wants a post-American world. And, of course, that's acceptable, right? Yeah, wipe out America ideologically in a book, that's fine. This book, now this is a problem, right? The concept itself is a problem, right? The original cover was all black. I said, black background? I said, no. It'll be a good day when this happens, so. I'm going to go through a few more things, and I do want to give and take here, so if you guys can chime in, or else, I don't know. I just want to have some thoughts on 9/11, maybe call it a night. But if you guys interact, I'll definitely go back and forth. I want to make this communal. I mean, this is, we all, have seen this, at least most of us. Some of us haven't. Some people are just, discovering it now for the first time, younger people in America, the world. This is a template that I have of a stinking politician or an idiot doing a speech with talking out of their ass. And Islam is a religion of happiness and love. It went from peace to happiness and love, Again, how violent and how hateful does religion have to be for anyone to call it love and happiness? Incredible. This bastard right here, is David Forte. He was Bush's Islamic advisor, religion advisor, right, post 9/11. He's a piece of shit who lied to Bush, and Bush, being an idiot, took it at face value, said, oh, okay, Islam is peace, great. This is from my book, Islam Bitches, and in the book, I have Muhammad pimps on every single page, dressed like a 70s pimp, pointing his pimp cane at each of them Islam bitches and introducing them to the reader. So as I wrote on the page, it said, after the worst attack on American soil in our history, we needed the truth more than ever. Instead, Bush's religion advisor lied his ass off about the nature of Islam and the threat we faced, which crippled our war effort. And his lie has been told by many, and it's never been retracted, letting the Islamic enemy murder 230,000 people since 9/11. It's now up to 300,000. 300,000. 200, and so think about that. In probably 6-7 years, it's been about 70,000 people murdered. Incredible. People since 9/11, truth hurts? No, lies hurt. Cataclysmically. So these are actual quotes, because what I did in my book, Islam Bitches, which is available on my website, botchfalls.com, is I quoted across history all these Islamophiles, right? Islam Bitches. The last few hundred years, whether they're writers or philosophers or actors or presidents or so on and so on and so on. And a lot of them made it in here. And this rat bastard said this, and my words are in red. His actual quotes are in black. So he said, nothing this evil, 9/11, could come from religion. And I said 9/11 was as much an act of faith as it was an act of war. He goes, free enterprise has always been a hallmark of Islamic law and Muslim economics. And I added, can't you tell? Those hellholes. If that's the case, why are they hellholes? Bin Laden is evil. Islam is not. Bin Laden was Islam personified, I added. And then he goes, Islam has in its history great traditions of tolerance, learning, and spirituality. I said, this evil rat has a great history of ignoring Islam's endless horrors. And I have Muhammad say, my bitch, David Forte, whose need to protect religion at all costs helped allow Islam to get away with more evil than ever. And while he sounds a lot like me, of course he does, right, Muhammad, he even notes it at least a few times in the book. He goes, the evil falseness is making me say these things. I just want to let the reader know. So even he is in on it. It's pretty fun. But this rat bastard did great damage to us. I haven't seen his ugly face since. David Forte. Keep that. Remember that name. He was one of the chief villains post 9/11 on our side. Enemy did their thing, and then he said, has nothing to do with Islam. It's all good. Pop Culture Avenger says, hey, Bosch, you have a link where I could get your books? I guess I could put it in here. It's so funny. I'm new at this. It's so funny. But thanks for asking. Appreciate it. I'm going to link to my store. I guess if I put it in here, let me see if it works. I guess it does. I guess it does, right? I don't know if I can click it, but if you can't, sorry. It's boschfawson.com. Click my store. Appreciate it, Pop Culture Avenger. Yeah, so I have 6 books, 4 comic books, hundreds of prints, and I have maybe 40, less than that probably right now, because I've been, again, my store was nuked by Google a little while back, so I've been adding new items to my store. It's taken a while. I got 6 books again. I have 4 comic books so far. I have Muhammad trading cards, Muhammad playing cards, T-shirts on Teespring. Check it all out. Appreciate it. Thanks for asking. Diana says, hi, Bosch. Thank you for doing this live stream on the 23rd anniversary of 9/11 as well as the 12th anniversary of Benghazi. Absolutely. That horrific attack. You hit the target. You hit the bullseye. Islam is submission, not peace, happiness, and love. It's so infuriating. We are here 23 years after that absolute impossible atrocity, meaning we never saw it before in our lives. We never saw something that horrifically evil, that malicious. And again, over and over again, I will argue this to the death, that this was as much an act of faith as it was an act of war. And religionists get pissed off at that. I don't give a damn. This is we need to take this on as what it is. It is a religion. You don't fly planes into towers for a secular ideology. You don't do that for politics. You do that because you believe you're going to fly into paradise. That's why. Michael says, Michael Moore went to the Taliban's office in New York on his old show before 9/11. Of course. I guess he did, yeah. Trump 2024, absolutely Pop Culture Adventure. And again, just one aside about last night's debate. I see some people, and I like some of these people, right? They're coming on social media. He lost. She won. I know you don't want to hear it. You're idiots. You're idiots. She's a lying whore. She lied all night. It was Trump against 3, Trump against an entire network, Trump against the world, right? And we're supposed to sit there and say, you know what? He wasn't as good. He didn't knock her out of the race the way he knocked out Biden. It's like, no, that's fine. She's a terrible candidate, and they had to try to rig the debate, which they did, and still he kicked their asses, so awesome. Mike says, may as well, I guess I meant buy your book. I'm probably already on a list for reading Cody Wilson's book. That's the thing, Mike. People let me know, hey, I'm afraid to buy your stuff. Please don't be. Please. This is how I make my living. I take the major risk. You guys simply buy it. We're not at that point yet where these rat bastards are going to come get us and, round us up at this point at least. If they're going to do it, they'll get me first anyway. The point is that this is how I make my living. I've been writing and drawing against Islam for a long time. I created Pigman not long after 9/11. I released my first book, 2004. I have released 5 other books since then. I won the Muhammad Cartoon Contest. If those who are here unaware, I won the Muhammad Cartoon Contest 2015. Almost got murdered by jihadists. So, I feel compelled to do this. I'm not doing it for others in a sense where I'm doing it for you guys. No, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it for freedom. I'm doing it to keep free speech alive. There is far too many in the West who want to give up the issue of free speech. They want to give it up. They want to throw it to the wolves, right? If you're a cartoonist and you haven't drawn Muhammad, hey man, you're a de facto Muslim according to Islam. If they got you like that, that's no damn good. And, again, I'd love for more people to do it. Me writes, still have that signed copy of Table for One. Thanks. Appreciate it. I got from you years ago. My mom recently asked me about it when she saw it. Had her read it and she loved it. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. She learned about your politics and social stances and is a big fan now. I really appreciate that. Thanks, me. Thank you. That's a special book, Table for One for me. It really is my first book. 20th anniversary this year, And if people are interested, maybe I can, as I've been doing with the Pigman for sketches for propaganda, Muhammad sketches for, this past week, like this. I can do sketches of William Howland, the hero from Table for One. I can do that as well. So maybe I might do that for the 20th anniversary. I thought about doing a color edition. I'm almost resisting it, to be honest. It's a black and white story in a lot of ways, and part of me wants to do it, but we'll see. This is another image from Propaganda, my book, called Building Blocks. Building ... blocks, right? The building blocks, right? Islam, that's the Twin Towers. Islam means, right? Pretty self-explanatory. Mike says it means 23 years old. Yeah, 23-year-olds have no memory of 9/11. Exactly. Think about that. 23-year-olds have no memory of 9/11. Even, people who are a few years older, they have no memory, but it's pretty amazing. There were 23-year-olds alive today who didn't exist when 9/11 happened. Amoral Fat 40 ounce. Hello, Bosch Fawson, and hail everyone in chat. 9/11 was fucking disgusting. Absolutely true. Well put. There's no other way to put that. Yeah, Mike, the Sin City vibes. I guess you're referring to Table for One. It's black and white, and the main character wears pure black and white. He's all black dress shirt, black slacks, black shoes, and a tie. It's behind me. Let me angle it here. That's the hero up there, William Howland, Table for One. And he says, I walk into a crowded room, not a soul in sight. And that became, again, it became the line of the graphic novel. It was the thing that got the former editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics at the time, 2004, Joke Asada, who I call Joke Asada. He said, hey, you got more? He goes, I love that drawing. I said, I have 81-page graphic novel. He goes, send it. I repeated it in the last few live streams, sorry, but so I sent it, and he got sick, and he ended up in the hands of his assistant, who was Axel Alonso, who was a flat-out commie. And of course, he probably chucked it in the garbage, because while it wasn't obviously right-wing comic, you read it, it's not a left-wing comic. You know that. And you know that by the commentary also, because I was in the middle of working on that when 9/11 hit. And so I decided, am I going to continue this, or am I going to do Pigman? And I decided to continue it. And what I did was, after the fact, I added a double-page spread of the customers in the restaurant talking about it, because it takes place a little after 9/11. And they have a lot of commentary about it. I actually made a video on my YouTube channel about that page, so check it out. And also, if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, I would really appreciate it. I want to grow my channel. If you like the videos, like them. I have 40 videos now, I think. I have a series on the greatest comic book artist ever, Alex Toth, and that's a fact. So we can't argue against facts, right? So that's a fact. I love Kirby. I love Ditko. I love John Buscema, John Romita Jr., his father. I love all those guys, and they're great, all-time greats. Alex was greatest, and Frank Miller. I mean, Frank Miller. Frank Miller had probably more, and Will Eisner as well. A master with the greatest comic book career ever. Comic strip artist, right? And then the graphic novel guy who coined the graphic novel. A great man. I was nominated for an Eisner, by the way, which is an incredible honor. Unless if you're a Ripetard fan, and if you're a Ripetverse fan, a Ripetard, and say, yeah, but you lost. You're an Eisner Award loser. Technically speaking, sure. But man, what an honor. Anyway, the point is, Frank Miller also, he probably had more to do with me becoming a writer artist than anyone else. Because man, he's a hell of a writer. When he was at the top of his game, he was untouchable. People said Alan Moore, I'm sorry, I'll take Daredevil Born Again and Dark Knight over Watchmen any day. And Watchmen's a great book. I acknowledge that. It is. Especially the Rorschach parts. Why is it great to me? Because it was Alan Moore trying to channel Steve Ditko and therefore Ayn Rand. So if he was going to be at all honest, he would have to at least bring out some of the truth of the character. He ended up being the most compelling character. Anyway, I can go on. But Stormtrooper Julian Caesar says, I don't have a lot to add. I'll say I was 11. Walking into science class, my teacher had a TV on when the towers were on fire. I was wondering what movie he was watching. Wow. Isn't that the truth? It was such an impossible thing that people, we kept thinking the first thing, it was an accident, right? That's what some of us thought. As soon as the second plane hit, I thought Islam, jihad. Back to back. Islam, jihad. And that's what I had Pigman say in his mind. In Pigman number 1. As soon as the second tower hit, that's it. Not an accident. This is the Islamic enemy making their move. Their biggest move yet against civilization. Mike said, I remember a lot of people thought it was a movie. Yeah. Yep. Me says, don't do color. I know, man. Believe me. Oh, man. I have a color. It's not here. Let me try to find it. 1 second, guys. 1 second. I'm going to look for something here. And I appreciate the interaction. I don't want it to be some dour thing. I mean, I want to commemorate this, absolutely. But at the same time, I want to give and take with you guys. I always appreciate anyone chiming in, especially for topics like this. I mean, I got to say, people are so scared to touch things like this. Like, what the hell, man? So let me just show you something quick. Me and others. I've already done a color cover, just to see how it might look, right? Let me show you if it comes up here. It might not come up. Interesting. I guess not. No. Interesting. Okay. Anyway, I posted it online a little while back. You might be able to see it, so maybe check it out at some point. But me says, don't do color. Teal font is great. Thank you. I love the black and white, and it fits perfectly. That's the thing. I could have made a color, but I said, no. This story is black and white. That's how I see it. That's how I visualize it. That's how the character is. That's how the story is. It's a pure good and evil, black and white, right? And visually, I wanted to convey those classic movies. That's what it was, the Hollywood classic movies, right? It was like when I saw It's a Wonderful Life colorized and hated it. Black and white fits the theme perfectly. I also noticed you had an Ayn Rand reference absolutely in the background, one of the scenes as well. I knew exactly what I was in for there, absolutely. Love Ayn Rand. I followed her philosophy. As I often state, I came from a misogynistic, Jew-hating religion to a philosophy founded by a female of Jewish descent. You know what I mean? The through line. It's just funny to me to look at it that way. Mike says, I saw an essay defending Dark Knight 2. They made some good points. Miller knew what he was doing. I'm curious what you're referring to. I know Dark Knight 2, hated it flat out, but I got to say I hated it. I read the first issue, devoured it, thought it was strong as hell, right? And then I looked back at the art, I was like, oof, okay. And they just got more strange. And I got to say, I think, according to Miller, he became an alcoholic, and I think he was heavy into it at that point because a lot of his stuff wasn't making any more sense the way it used to. It just wasn't. But man, that first issue was a great start. It was a great start, and then it went to hell. I can't reread it. I really can't. I can still reread Dark Knight Returns, absolutely. And even, I haven't reread Dark Knight 3, but better than Part 2. It was Andy Kubert trying to do his best Miller, or Adam Kubert, I forgot. I think Andy Kubert. Miller knew what he was doing in a sense where issue 2, you got Batman flying his Batmobile. It's a flying Batmobile at this point into a building, into Lex Luthor's building, I believe. But I think he had done that prior to 9/11. And then in the middle of it, 9/11 hit. And he incorporated some elements of that into there. That's a tough read, man. Tough read. Me says, Alan Moore also tried to make Rorschach the crazy character that is clearly wrong, and that backfired big time. Big time. Let me discuss this and get back to what I was showing you here. Again, I'm going to follow the chat right now and get back to this. I just want to mention a few things. Alan Moore, again, channeled Steve Ditko and therefore Ayn Rand with the characters The Question and Mr. A, and created Rorschach as a stand-in because they couldn't get the Charlton characters. Moore could not get the Charlton characters. DC owned them. They bought them from Charlton, but they want to use them for other things. So they said, just create amalgamations, whatever. And he did. He's still the most compelling character in the entire graphic novel. The best lines, the most moral character. However crazy Moore tried to make him. And Moore's politics, if you doubt whether he's a leftist or he's an anarchist, if you doubt that, right? Check out online. He wears the hammer and sickle on his T-shirt. Happily taking a picture with that. He wipes out the two right-wing characters in the graphic novel. It opens up. It bookends it. The first issue wipes out the comedian, who's the perverted version of Captain America, a right-wing character, and the last issue, Rorschach. It's bookended with the murder of two right-wing characters. That's it. And then the left-wing character, again, people say, oh, no, Ozymandias, he's a capitalist. Oh, please. Capitalists flourish. They want to create, right? This guy is a mass murderer. What are mass murderers? Biggest mass murderers of history? Muslims, communists. Anyway, I can go on about that, but just one line, okay? An immortal line. Rorschach, when he finds out that the rest of the Watchmen want to follow Ozymandias and keep it quiet about what he did, right? A mass murder in order to unite the world. What a stupid thing. And Rorschach's like, you're joking. He looked at everyone. You're joking. He goes, never compromise. Not even in the face of Armageddon. Powerful stuff, man. And I've never heard Moore write any character like that or any dialogue like that prior to that. Because, again, he was channeling Ditko and Rand. Mike says, my favorite Alan Moore comic was The Ballad of Halo Jones for 2000 Ad Magazine. I don't know. I never read that. It was totally original, not just parody of using characters from old literature. Okay. I'd like to check that out then. Egon the Dragon Cock says, I couldn't finish DK2. I get it. I get it. Diana writes, as a veteran, I took the oath to protect and defend the Constitution, which has the First Amendment, and Bosch draws Muhammad under the banner of freedom of speech. You're fearless and defiant. Thank you very much, Diana. I appreciate it. I used to blush at those type of compliments, but I just appreciate it now. Thank you. Mike says, I feel like I relate to the comedian more and more as I get older. I get the joke. Huh. He wanted to, again, try to pervert Captain America and make him the ugly soldier caricature who will do any horror in the name of the government. Egon says, Egon the Dragon Cock, if that's how you pronounce it. Did you see the Watchmen HBO show? I couldn't do it. I saw a little bit and I said, I'm out. As soon as they introduced this idea that white supremacists were celebrating Rorschach, it was stupid. I'm like, oh, okay, we're dealing with idiots here. We're dealing with communists. I was out. And then, of course, Dr. Manhattan becomes black. He says, I'm going to use a black form now. He was never black, but all of a sudden he's black. Ugh, I can't do that. I just can't. Why haven't we gotten a second season? People say, oh, because, why not? You know why. No one watched it. That's why. No one watched The Watchmen. All right. Who watches The Watchmen? No one, apparently, on HBO. I'm going to go through a few more things here if you want to chime in again, guys. Islam means self-explanatory. Another joke. And then check this out. This was a contest, another contest that I entered years ago. It was an online contest about the towers and whether we wanted to rebuild them, right? And I said, okay, let me do something creative. Let me think about this. I said, oh, okay, good. Build the towers over the Kaaba. Towers over the Kaaba, right? With the shadow of the towers always over the Kaaba. Well, not always, but during certain parts of the day. Towering over Islam. And I said, having the Twin Towers overshadow the icon of Islam in Saudi Arabia would symbolize a relationship between our way of life and theirs. And I won that contest, but it was a strange thing. It was no win. It was just like an online thing. I was like, okay. I don't know. But I took part in it. I thought that was an interesting way to go about it. This, to me, is one of the most horrific things of that day. If you look close, it's one of the innocent victims who decided to fall from towers instead of die by fire. This was the victims of 9/11. It was an image, I think, that Michelle Malkin posted at the time. It was a court case against some of these savages, and someone had this in the courtroom, a big image of it, just to remind the people in the courtroom this was an atrocity that killed nearly 3,000 Americans. And again, they've gone unavenged, and that to me is part of we have not been able to flourish as a country since in a lot of ways because of that. Because of that, I don't know, dereliction, fundamental dereliction. Enemies like that in World War II, our response to Japan killing Americans at Pearl Harbor was to nuke them. People to this day regret that and bitch about it. No. Even an old Japanese guy at the time said they were gifts from heaven. That's what he referred to as a nuke spy. They were gifts from heaven. He understood that they would never give up, that they were a suicidal culture. This is pretty self-explanatory. You guys think about it. If you don't know what it means, it's pretty obvious to me, at least. And then this is the last image for today, and then I'm going to read some of your comments. Again, I want to reiterate, 9/11 was as much an act of faith as it was an act of war. It was an act of war and an act of faith. A fusion of both. Like it's politics and religion and ideology and law, right? And a doctrine of warfare. It's all that. It's not one or the other. It's not a religion. Of course it is. Again, you don't fly planes into buildings for power on earth, for politics. You do that because you believe you're going to fly right into paradise. That's why they did it. That's why they did it. I'm going to read some comments here. Amoral Fat 40 ounce says, I was introduced to The Dark Knight Returns as a cartoon movie. I loved it. Yeah, that was really good adaptation. Read digital copy years ago. Only recently got the trade paperback. I get so amped to read the book. Oh man, I know this is anyway. I wasn't going to show it, but I have the artist edition, the huge artist edition, the black and white one that Frank Miller did, and you see his original art and the size of it. I'm going to review that soon. I have the individual issues, right? Hardcover versions of them within this nice little, I guess, case. They're individual issues of issue 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're all hardcovers. And then I have the Absolute Edition, which unfortunately has DK2 in it. And then I have the huge version. And I'll be getting the Batman Year One Artist Edition as well. And I'm going to review that. I finally got the setup here where I can actually have a big, thing overhead, and I can review those big books now, which is awesome. I'm finishing up my discussion of Alex Toth on my series. I'm up to 15 or 16 videos of Alex Toth so far, where I read a lot of his interviews and essays about him, articles about him, and then I'm going to get into the art. I wanted to set the stage about who this man was, what he thought about art before I showed his art. So check that out at my YouTube channel. Yeah, Dark Knight Returns is an all-time great comic book. It's arguably Miller's best work in terms of superhero work. His writing, and again, the drawing, he still gets hit for that. The storytelling was so good, you can live with some of the sketchy drawing at a certain point. At least I could. Because again, he's a storyteller first and foremost, Miller. And when he busts his ass, he's a really good artist. When he doesn't bust his ass, he can be horrifically bad. 300 is his last great work. 1998, it's his last great work. It's too long, Frank. And then he did Holy Terror, which I reviewed on my channel. Check out my thoughts if you haven't, where I review Holy Terror. Me and him are the only guys who took on jihad, but I also take on Islam, which he didn't. Oh man, yeah, The Dark Knight Returns, a great book. Mike says, no one outside the UK and Australia read Halo Jones or 2000 AD magazine. I know of the magazine. I think Brian Boland did some work for that, who's a fantastic artist. Yeah, Amoral Fat 40-ounce falling man, yep. The guy falling from a tower, upside down, going down. And I think, if I recall correctly, the family of that man, right, they identified him, right? They actually said that what he did was evil. You know why? Because he committed suicide. And it pissed me off then, and it pissed me off now. The idea that it's either going to be death by fire or death by falling, and you're going to blame the guy for committing suicide, committing a great evil. He shouldn't have done that. I mean, that kind of mentality, it's evil. That mentality is evil, not what he chose to do. That mentality is evil. Me says, I apologize. I mean people who don't condemn it and make excuses for it and try to understand it. I'm sorry. Let me go back quick. Alan Moore tried wrong, backfired big time. I'm sorry. I lost the context again. Apologize. If you can just follow up. Dan, how's it going, Dan? Dan, the unacceptable Canadian. I like the idea of the Twin Towers towering over the Kaaba. Build them to the east of it exactly so that when Muslims face Mecca, the towers are right in their faces. Absolutely. And again, we got to get to the point, right, as a culture where we got to stop being de facto Muslims in this sense. Cartoonists are de facto Muslims when it comes to drawing Muhammad. They're abiding by Sharia law. They are. I don't give a shit what they say. And I've been told by some artists, oh, I just don't want to do that. Yeah, sure. And I want to do that. I have to do that. I feel compelled to do that. You're going to try to murder human beings for drawing cartoons. I'm going to draw the cartoons. So, I don't know. It's infuriating. Immoral Fat 40-ounce says, we collectively still have lingering trauma. Great point, because that's exactly right. We know there's a great evil that has not been silenced, that is still breathing unfairly, while its victims, 300,000 since 9/11. Keep it in mind, 300,000 human beings since 9/11 have been murdered. Check out thereligionofpeace.com. I post every single week the jihad stats, every week. 2 weeks ago, I think it was 300. Last week, 150. So it fluctuates a little, but thousands a month, thousands, right? It can get to 1,000 a month. sometimes 10,000, 20,000, sometimes a month. It has gotten there. When we have a weaker president, it gets higher. When we have a stronger president, it gets lower. Why? Because the rat bastards think twice, and it's a global, atrocity. This thing, right? Jihad. But you're absolutely right, a moral fat 40 ounce. There is a collective trauma because a part of us understands that a great evil hasn't been silenced, that a great evil is still alive and well, and to some extent flourishing. I think there are more terrorist groups now than there were. There were more mosques in the West than there were pre 9/11. That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. At least 140 Islamic terrorist groups, at least globally, at least. I put a list out there, right? Every so often, say, hey, those who tell us about the right-wing terrorist threat, give me your list. Give me a comparable list. They can't even name one, and that's not an exaggeration. They cannot even name one. Where's the right-wing Christian dictatorship? Where is it? The one that they hanker about, right? The ones that they go on and on about. There are leftist dictatorships. There are Islamic dictatorships. There are communist dictatorships and Islamic dictatorships. Excuse me. Apologize. Absolutely. We do have a collective, we collectively still have a lingering trauma about 9/11. We didn't take care of business as a culture, as a society. Our government has sold us out. They sold us out. They would rather defend the concept of Islam means peace than defend Americans from the true believer Muslims who want us dead, who murdered us. Egon the Dragon Cock says, Dragon Cock, it's just funny. I recently got the Miller Daredevil omnibuses. Yeah, me too. I loved your video covering. Oh man, thanks. Man, they're fantastic. I mean, Miller was on fire. Absolutely was. He was a great storyteller. A great storyteller. And by that, again, of course, the writing, but also the way he designed the panels. And again, the art could be okay at times. When he came back to Daredevil in 1986 with Dave Mazzucchelli drawing Born Again, I mean, that was the best Daredevil ever, hands down. It's the best Daredevil story ever. And then he went from there to Batman Year One. I mean, think about that 1-2 punch. And Dave Mazzucchelli, an extraordinary artist, an all-time great. He gets lost in the mix, even in my mind sometimes, because he hasn't produced as much as the mainstream guys. But man, and he's still great. Check out Asterios Polyp, his first full graphic novel, wrote pencil, ink, letter, color. Jimmy Lumberjack says, our response to 9/11 attack was tampered. Yeah, tampered by politicians. True, they got in the way. The people, we were victims of politicians not wanting to avenge the attack. No, I agree. I share that opinion, Jimmy. They decided after 9/11, they wanted to play politics and say, okay, Islam is peace, right? Shut your trap. You're a dumb politician, Bush. You're an idiotic politician, okay? You went there for power. And when you had the power, you did nothing with it. You had this unprecedented, impossible attack. When I say impossible, I mean that. It should never have happened. It can't happen, right? With any relatively rational enemy, right? But we have irrational enemies. They took these planes, hijacked them, at top speed flew them into the towers, 500 miles per hour. I mean, you can't anticipate that. Our government, though, I gotta say, in doing my research, they caught wind that these guys were planning on flying planes into buildings. They did. Our government knew of that. I'm not saying that they were in on it, but they did know that was a possibility. We didn't know. The government didn't let us in on that. 1993, the first attack on the Twin Towers, right? They tried to bomb the basements and topple the towers and kill 100,000 people. That was their sick, twisted plan. That was their dream, right? They didn't have enough money to make the bombs big enough that they needed. And what happens after? Not much. 6 Americans died. Let's sweep that under the rug and just keep going as if nothing happened. And then 8 years later, of course, they pulled off the most horrific attack. And the worst attack since was on October 7th, 2023 in Israel. The worst attack since 9/11. The most people killed in a single attack. And I know people have their issues, and I am like, I can't stand it. These were innocent human beings who were slaughtered. You know, it's not has nothing to do with territory. It has to do with the Jew hatred, the lethal Jew hatred within the Quran. That's what it has to do with. And I'll argue with anyone over that. And I got into many arguments over that. Egon the Dragoncock says, I have the absolute Dark Knight Returns edition. I've just about wore out the Dark Knight Returns part. Yeah. I mean, it's an all-time great comic book. So epic, so romantic in the artistic sense. You know, you got a 55-year-old Bruce Wayne, 10 years retired, exploding on the criminals of Gotham. You know, pent up frustration for years of not doing it, for, you know, Robin, Joker, killing him. That was at least the implied thing, until they actually had a comic book that dealt with that. That John Romita Jr., they published his pencils. It was beautiful art. Frank Miller wrote it with Brian Azzarello, I believe. What's it called? A Dark Knight something. It has to do with the Joker, Batman. It was one of the better DC comics that John Romita Jr. did when he went to DC. Me says, if you haven't read Gotham by Gaslight, absolutely read that. You should. Yep. It's a Victorian era Batman during the time of Jack the Ripper. That's what's cool about Batman. He fits in almost any time period easily. He does. He's the most malleable character I think comics has ever had. Ever. He works in the old comics. He works as Adam West. He works as Michael Keaton, as Christian Bale in The Dark Knight. He works in comics in any capacity. He worked in there. In the Elseworlds book, you know, he works. He's a visually stunning character. I mean, a beautiful character. I mean, I think EVS was talking about this, Ethan Masciver, about the idea that you can't draw him like a superhero. And he's right about that, because Jim Lee's version is like a superhero. You got to draw him like a creature, almost a creature of the night, right? Draw him in shadows, just the eyes popping out, blending in with the shadows. You know, he's not a superhero. You know, in that sense, he's not. He uses his suit to scare the hell out of the guys. He's not going to wear light blue with a gray suit. It's not going to happen. That's why when they had the Batman Year One, Mazzucchelli's version was a completely black cape with a single black, you know, bat, no oval. You know, and Miller actually, it was great. It was brilliant. It was genius on Miller's part to, you know, have him say, "Why do you think I wear a target on my chest about the symbol?" Where the bad guys shot at it, right, and it was bulletproof. So, you know, it's brilliant. That's when Miller at his best is probably better than anyone in terms of storytelling. You know, him at his best. The guy did incredible comic after incredible comic. Even the Electro Assassin, it's a fantastic comic. It's a great read. You know, with Bill Sienkiewicz, I think that's how you pronounce it. Bill Sienkiewicz. Yep, Gotham by Gaslight's great. It's great. Mike Mignola, it's fantastic art. Mike says, I hadn't considered Islam and ideology as the reason for 9/11 before Bosch. I always thought it was a few radicals who also happen to be Muslim. I appreciate that, Mike. I've had 2 decades of arguing with people about it. The true believers are the monsters. You know, that's why we always want to focus on the least devout Muslims as a culture, right? As a society. Why? So we can avoid the fact that its most devout followers are the monsters that engage in jihad. That's why. It's a self-protection thing, right? Like, I don't want to think that, you know, I'm too good to think that. No, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to think that, to come to that conclusion. That's what it really is. You're not good, you're not moral enough, you're not honest enough to come to that conclusion that the most devout Muslims are monsters. The least devout are the least Muslim. And this idea, you shouldn't even afford them that title, Muslim. I got Muslim cousins, right, who eat pork, have dogs, treat the women with respect, have Jewish friends. How Muslim is that? Not Muslim at all. So they're, post-Islamic Muslims, the way I call it. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's again, and look, I'm not bitching about the fact I've been doing it for 2 decades now, trying to argue with this. That's life, right? The truth, especially hard truths, you're gonna have to repeat them until you're blue in the face. That's life. I've been doing it, and I will continue to do it. People say you're one note. That's fine, man. That's fine by me. I'm not, but that's fine to be called that by a critic, because that one note right there could keep us from a nuclear jihad. And that's what keeps me up at night. Because we can't afford to have these savages run wild in a nuclear age. We can't. We are letting them, we're giving them a shot to do it. And they will, if we don't stop them. They're not going to stop themselves. Nuclear jihad is their ultimate dream. For Israel, for America. Jimmy says, I am glad you did that long form introduction to Toth. Thanks. I have about 3 more interviews to watch to catch up. Thank you. Thanks, Jimmy. The man deserves everything I have. I mean, in a sense where for this, if I'm going to dissect him, I have to give everything. I owe him so much. His art made me rethink a lot of what I was doing, what I was thinking. Even though, he was a fan of my first book, which is, again, think about that. If you were me, you send this Xerox copy, pure black and white, before I added the gray wash, to an address you're not sure is Toth's, because I tried to get his address. No one had it, right? No one had it. Everyone said, oh man, he's a recluse. I don't know. One guy said, maybe this is it, right? I said, okay, let me take a shot. So I sent a Xerox. Sent it within a few days. I got that beautiful, beautiful handwritten postcard. He was effusive in his praise. I mean, it blew me away. Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching. If people are interested in the greatest comic book artist ever, I will fight you on that. Anyone. Change my mind? You can't. Egon the Dragoncock says, I agree, Miller's a master storyteller. He absolutely is. He doesn't need to be a master draftsman. Absolutely not. And again, he put Daredevil on the map. Daredevil was always a middling character, always. Even when, Wally Wood was doing it, even when John Romita Sr. was doing it, it was always a poor man, Spider-Man type thing, Batman type thing. He wasn't quite there until Miller came in and, brought in Elektra, Bullseye with a Kingpin, brought in the Kingpin for the first time ever in Daredevil. People tend to forget, that was a Spider-Man character, Kingpin. He was a Spider-Man character. He debuted in Spider-Man. Miller brought him into the Daredevil. Again, another genius move. And it's perfect. They fit like a glove, right? They're both human. Even though, Matt Murdock Daredevil has his enhanced senses, but he's still physically, he's as strong as a human, even though he's tip-top shape. He can hear better. He can smell better. He can feel. He can actually read newspapers by the touch of the ink. That's how, powerful his sense of touch is. And, Miller talked about these things like a simple thing here. Imagine him, think about it. Daredevil, right? He's all about sense and touch, right? And feel, right? He can hear, he can touch. Imagine him in the sexual act. Miller thought about that. He mentioned that in interviews. Again, he dove in as deep as he could in these characters and, did a great job. Mike says Brian Boland did the best Judge Dredd comics. I mean, look, man, Brian Boland is a hell of an artist. Mainly, I know him through the Joker, Killing Joke, but I've seen images of that, of the Judge Dredd, and it's incredible. The detail he puts, and again, keep in mind about Brian Boland, this man uses a brush to do his detail work. He doesn't use pens, he uses a brush. That's how stunning it is. That fine line he does, that's him with the brush. Beautiful. Beautiful. Egon the Dragoncock says, I remember on 9/11 I was in college and was doing an all-nighter studying for an exam. I left my room to get something to eat at the dinner hall right when the towers fell the day after was surreal. It was. Again, you're watching the impossible happen right before your eyes, and you're questioning reality at that point. It's like, first of all, Muslims did this. We know they've been trying to kill us for years. Did our government, why couldn't they stop this? We give them billions and billions and billions of dollars for defense, right? Why didn't they stop this? And then there's a story behind the story where you have a FBI agent called John O'Neill. I read a few books with him on my shelf post 9/11. A great FBI agent, right? Hunting down bin Laden. He's the only one who knew about bin Laden. He was hunting him down for a number of years. Bin Laden and his Al Qaeda bombed the USS Cole. They bombed our embassies. They were killing Americans more and more and more brazen in their attacks. And he kept going, right? And this guy was always coming behind, always coming after the fact, right? But he wanted to get him. Then he had a falling out with the FBI for personal reasons having to do with, I think, his extracurricular activity outside of his wife and family. Anyway, I can get into that, but let me just say, he was a great agent. Let me just say that. A hell of a patriot. Where does he end up? He's talking with his friend on September 10th, 2001, right? They're having lunch or dinner or whatever it was, I remember. And he says, something big's coming. Something big is about to happen. He caught the chatter. He knew something big, and he knew it was Osama bin Laden. And where was he working at that point? Head of security at the Twin Towers. Hunting down this man, right, for years. Ends up at head of security at the Twin Towers. And by the way, I base Frank Warner, Pigman, on him on a physical level. He was a big guy, right? Like the old style cop. Big guy, big square jaw, hair pulled back, a little, missing some of the hair. It was like a Jack Nicholson cut. And he had that look, and I used him as a model. Him and Robert Spencer, my friend Robert Spencer. Even though Robert, he's not as big a guy, but it's the spirit of Robert Spencer, Frank Warner, but the physicality of John O'Neill. Anyway, so the point is, he ends up as head of security at the Twin Towers, and I call it Twin Towers. I don't like calling it World Trade Center. I call it the Twin Towers. That's a better name for him. It just it has a little more impact for me. I saw those towers every single time I went to art class in Manhattan, every single time. And I don't know if I saw the night before because I was in New York the night before 9/11. It was raining like hell. I don't remember if I looked, because I always looked at them on my walk. Anyway, John O'Neill ended up head of security at the Twin Towers. Goes in there after the first hit, brings people down, goes back up, and eventually never comes back down. He died. Hunting down the scumbag ends up killing him. The scumbag who he's hunting for ends up killing him, along with almost 3,000 Americans. Unbelievable. Hell of a character. It's like he's a fictional character. He's like a hero. There was a movie called Path to 9/11, which had Harvey Keitel playing, which was a strange casting. I'm like, Harvey Keitel? Great actor, but he doesn't suggest John O'Neill at all. What the hell? He could have got, even Vince Vaughn would have worked. And he's a right-wing guy. But anyway, I saw it years ago. It's been bombed out of existence since. Why? Because it acknowledged the fact that the Clintons, Bill Clinton, allowed Osama bin Laden to get away with murder. He had him 3 times at least to kill him, right? At least 3 times. Passed on all 3 times. One time he was with innocents. No innocents are with a wanted terrorist. I don't give a shit who they are. And I mean that. You get them, you kill them. He endangered those quote-unquote innocents. And at some point, these civilians are not innocent. At some point, those Palestinians celebrating 9/11, celebrating 10/7, at some point they're not innocent anymore. They're guilty civilians. Mike writes, I actually started learning leaning more right-wing because of a left-wing Australian radio show that did a right-wing parody. It made me wonder why more right-leaning stuff wasn't in media more. Yeah. What the left does and what Muslims do is they try to wipe out those who are not them everywhere they go. They're parasites. They're collectivists. They cannot allow any dissension in the ranks. They can't. They can't afford it. Why? Because their ideologies are weak, dishonest, fundamentally dishonest and weak. You know, Islam cannot stand any scrutiny. Communism can't stand any scrutiny. Zero. It collapses once you identify it for what it is, the evil that it is. Diana writes, and you draw Muhammad in such a way that he personifies evil unvarnished with a Hitler mustache and devil's horns, nothing less than reciprocity for the enemy. Absolutely, for this enemy. You know, when I draw Muhammad, as I drew him here with my middle finger on my iPad after that teacher was beheaded for showing Muhammad cartoons, it's, you know, it connects also National Socialism and Islam. Hitler was somewhat of a fan of Islam. He called it a masculine, muscular religion, as opposed to what he called Christianity. He called it weak, flabby. This idea that he was a Christian, a complete lie by the left. The left has been trying to de-leftifies, you know, Hitler since since we took care of business, right? In World War II. They threw him on the right. That guy was a leftist. He loved Marx. National Socialism. There's a reason why the left only calls it Nazism, because the actual name is National Socialism. That's why. Mike says Bush was just copied his daddy. Oof, I can't stand those guys. Both of them were pussies. Mike says Alex Jones spoke about the 9/11 attack plans before it happened. Yeah, I mean he was tuned in to some of those people. Maybe even John O'Neill. I don't know. Maybe he was, because John O'Neill, again, that FBI agent was, he knew his stuff. And he was studying the religion as well. It wasn't just some guy, Islam means peace, but this guy means no. Amoral Fat 40 on says, my generation went to Iraq. I graduated high school in 2004. We were all launched into a post 9/11 world at 15 to 18 years old. True. And a part of you, again, part of all of us were, we were let down. I mean, that's when I think the idea of our government protecting us, that idea was thrown out the window. We knew they were in it for power. They were in it for kissing the ass of the Islamic world, of not causing waves when it's like, that's your job. You have to wipe out this enemy. Now, there has to be a vicious price to be had for killing Americans on that level. Has to be. Taking down our towers, killing almost 3,000 Americans. And again, 300,000 since 9/11. So it has to be a world historical price to pay. Has to be. We haven't done it yet. Of course we could do it at any point. There will be a president at a certain point who says, you know what, we're done with jihad. It's over. And he will absolutely unleash our soldiers, say, do what you got to do. End this threat. This global threat's over. Not the war on terror, whatever the fuck that means, terror. The war on jihad. And jihad and Islam becomes a sheep. And jihad, Islam becomes a sheep. And all of a sudden, we'll have a lot more quote-unquote moderate Muslims in the world, because they'll be scared shit. Far more scared than they are of Allah. They'll be more scared of the reaction to jihad than they are of Allah. Jimmy Lumberjack writes, Mike, Alex Jones was laughed at, and after 9/11, they still called him a crackpot. The government and media are in collusion. They want to take away free speech and free thought. Now, Alex Jones can be an idiot at times as well. He can be right at times, and obviously, yeah, he's absolutely right. And then he's an idiot about 10/7. He really is. He sided with Hamas, and he understood them. It's like, what an asshole. I called him out on that. So he's good, and then he sucks. Back and forth. He's all over the place. More trustworthy than a government? Of course. Than an average media? Sure. But overall, I don't know. That guy's all over the place. He really is. Mike says, everyone talks about Muhammad. Also, sorry, Ron Paul, right? Oh, man, he was what? He was a piece of shit. He was like a leftist when it comes to foreign policy. And that rat bastard, he said about Osama bin Laden, right? That he was against killing him, right? He was against it. It's not right, right? And then about American Sniper. I forgot his name. If someone can remember here, he says, "Live by the what was it? Live by the sword, die by the sword." Right? About one of ours, soldier who was murdered by another soldier at a shooting range. But keep in mind, okay, about Osama bin Laden who murdered almost 3,000 Americans. Right? More than that actually, because embassies and all that. Over 3,000 Americans. Right? He says he was against killing him. About one of our own soldiers, live by the sword, die by the sword. That to me, that's a snapshot of who Ron Paul is. Fuck him. Whatever else he is to you, fuck him. If he can't appreciate that, to hell with him. He's a worthless piece of shit. Mike says, everyone talks about Muhammad being censored in South Park, but Muhammad actually appeared uncensored in South Park pre 9/11. He was part of the super best friends and had the power of fire. Funny. Interesting. Also, one thing. Matt and Trey, right? They didn't censor. Comedy Central did. They had him in the cartoon. They did it. I don't fault them on that. The only thing I fault them for is this. They have enough money, enough power to have told Comedy Central at that point, fuck you, and started their own thing on their own network. They could have done that. I don't know why people are still married to the old ways. Like even Frank Miller, right? I don't think he's ever self-published or done anything. Imagine what he would do, like even in crowdfunding, Frank Miller. I know he's stuck on the old ways, but imagine what he could do. And imagine if he unleashes himself also. It's like, go all the way, Frank. You can't go, again, you can't criticize the left and then go half-assed and say, oh, sorry, and then go after jihad and not go after Islam and say, oh, I wasn't thinking it right. Stop. They're going to come after you full throttle regardless, even if you touch it. Even if you touch it, they're going to come after you. So go all the way. Me says, at least the Soviets were atheists and feared death. Can't scare or intimidate an enemy that worships death for them and their kids. I say give them what they want, make them all martyrs that want it. Absolutely. Pigman hunts them down right across the world, and they're running from him. He goes, whoa, 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 whoa. I thought you guys loved death. What's going on here? Why are you running? It's a little crack. It's roasting them, but hey, they're liars. They hate life. It's not that they love death. They hate life. But they think it sounds cooler and more dangerous. We love death. They're piece of shits who hate life. And you think about Islam, right? It makes their world such a hellhole that they have to come to the West. Also, it's part of the deal, right? Islam makes such hellholes that they can't wait to get to paradise. Right? I mean, that's what it is. Mike says 9/11 wasn't even the first attack on the World Trade Center. Exactly, 1993. Yep. The blind sheikh, that piece of shit was in there. Part of the whole mess. Me says 10/7 was infuriating. I don't feel bad about Gaza now. Fuck around and find out 100%. I appreciate that because there were some people in some circles that are adjacent with mine. I don't give a fuck. You don't give a fuck about human beings being slaughtered, innocent human beings? Fuck you. I mean, it's horrific, the things that were being said after. And then you got Jake Shields, that piece of shit, coming out of fucking Hitler after that. And Candace Owens and all these other whores coming out as fucking, Jew-hating rats. The only thing I like is the fact that they're being dismissed. They're losing influence. I don't give a fuck how many, rats follow them. It's horrific. These were innocent human beings slaughtered by savages, mass raped by savages. And we're supposed to sit there, well, that's Israel's problem. No, it's the same enemy that killed us on 9/11. The same exact enemy. It doesn't matter what, different name, Hamas as opposed to Al-Qaeda, same shit. Hamas, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, 140 different terrorist groups, same shit. So again, sorry, me says 10/7 was infuriating. I don't feel bad for Gaza now. Fuck Gaza. Savages, guilty civilians. Fuck around and find out. I don't feel bad about Dresden or Japan either. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You start a war, you're going to be ended. Motherfuckers, you start a war, you will be ended. That's what happens to those who start wars. They're ended. Innocents will die. People who didn't want it, that's part of it. That's part of the understanding here. We cannot be humane for their innocence when they're trying to kill ours. Kill them, and if some innocents are in the way, so be it. That's it. You start wars, you're ended. That should be our foreign policy, period. Trevor, my man Trevor, he says, I served 2 tours in Afghanistan, and my reward was more bureaucracy and more oppressive government, not why I went. I mean, there's something. Trevor represents the, man, there were men and women after 9/11. There was more recruits after 9/11 than we had, arguably ever. I don't know if that's true, but arguably ever. Patriotic Americans who were infuriated with what happened and wanted to kill the motherfuckers. End this threat. What did the government do? Whoa, guys. Just slow down here, okay? We'll have a long war. When Bush said it's going to be a long war, that was it. It's like, okay, we're not fighting a war. He's not going to unleash our soldiers. I never fault the soldiers. I've been called every name in the books by, there was a forum I was in with some soldiers. You motherfucker. I was like, guys, I'm not calling you out. He's not unleashing you guys on the threat. That's what I'm calling out. Don't take it personally if I call him out as being a pussy. I'm not calling you guys out. You're the weapon. He's not using you. That's my argument. They betrayed our fighting men and women. They betrayed them, our government. And we could have wiped out this threat. If our soldiers were unleashed hell on them, it's over. Jihad's over at that point. And again, nukes should have been considered and maybe even used. Saudi Arabia, Iran, one or the other or both. Say jihad's over. That's it. You wanted war, you got it. Those are the greatest sponsors of terrorism on earth. The Saudis and the Iranians, the greatest sponsors. They should have paid a vicious price, and they paid no price. The dumb fuck Bush looked around, and this is, I will argue this to the end of time, and I've gotten pushback, but I want to see if people want to push back here. Bush, right, after 9/11, he was like, okay, let's go to Afghanistan, bomb some mountains, right? That's what he did, bomb some mountains. Okay, guys, come on, let's, bomb some mountains, make it look, right? And then he looks at Iraq, he's like, yeah, my father, did that. I can finish a job. And on top of that, he's not that Muslim, right? He only has a mustache. He looks like a old-time gangster. He wears suits. He doesn't wear a turban. He doesn't wear religious robes. He's not that religious, and his neighbors hate him. He went to war with Iran for 10 years. Let's go after him. The safest thing they could do. That's what it was all about. It was a pussy move. Iran, Saudi Arabia. But Saudis were his boys, right? Him and his father's boys in the oil business and all that. Disgusting. So yeah, I believe he went after Saddam Hussein because he looked less Muslim than his neighbors. And that's it. It's as stupid as that, and I believe that. That's how stupid he is. That's how stupid his administration was. Like, he's the least religious looking. He has no religious, And again, Bush was a born-again Christian, right? So he's like, religion saved me. Therefore, I can't go after the religion, but I can go after the guy who wears a suit, like 3-piece suit. He's not really, Muslim, is he? It's retarded, but that's what I believe happened. As stupid as that. Mike says, only the court jester is allowed to tell the truth. That's Alex Jones, right? Hey, the guy is up and down all over the place. Right, absolutely sometimes, and stupid sometimes as well. And he'll say anything. I mean, he'll go after also, like, I remember the first time I heard Alex Jones was when he was ripping into Michael Savage. Doing this thing where he was, like, making Savage out to be a savage, right? It was just a strange thing. I was like, who the hell is this guy? It wasn't a good first impression, let me say that. And then I'd like stuff he said, and I hate some stuff he said. I said, oh, that's stupid. Okay, that's good. That's true. Yeah, okay. Oh my God, what the hell did you just say? And so on. It's always like that with him. He's not consistent with it. He's not rational to the point where he's the rational person who always thinks things through will be mostly right most of the time. He's dead wrong sometimes. He lets his emotions get the best of him. He lets his rage get the best of him, and he just, unreliable, man. But again, yeah, I will agree with certain things, absolutely. Jimmy Lumberjack writes, I agree, Alex Jones is not stable. However, because he is who he is not taken seriously. Yeah, it's unfortunate because some of the stuff he says is absolutely right. But then, he has to, what was that, the school shooting? Of course, it's ridiculous what the price he paid, what, $1 billion? They try to wipe him out, right? Short of killing him, they're trying to wipe out his business. His voice. It was the Sandy Hook, the massacre. It happened. I don't care what anyone says. Even Alex Jones says they admits that it happened. He was, even, let's just say he was wrong. Okay, he was wrong. And? So? They were hurt. I get it. But he believed our government's that corrupt that they would do something like that. And he's right. They have done horrific things. They have allowed things to happen. They are corrupt. We know that. Flady1 says, anyone see that South Park is going to wait till after the election for their new season so they can skip the drama? Huh. That's a little pussy move, regardless of where they stand. Why not? Get in there, get in the mix. I mean, think about that. Skip the drama. What's life if not drama? They call it drama farming. Yeah, drama. Please, the ones who bitch about it most are the most drama queens, the biggest drama queens. Mike said, I hate it when immigrants come to Australia and criticize it. Why do they come here? Yeah, it's so pathetic. It's such a tired thing. It's like, you guys want civilization. You want something better. You come here and then you try to make it your own hellholes. Me writes, innocent deaths are the fault of the aggressors 100%. We don't target them, obviously, but they will be killed 100%. 100%. And again, this idea, right? There's a genocide in Gaza, a genocide. That's evil. And the dumb fuck Joe Rogan also perpetuated that lie. Dumb fuck. I made a cartoon of him with his head cut off and the words Hamas floating into him and the words genocide, Holocaust coming out of his mouth until he got checked by Coleman Hughes. Simply said, that's not true. That's not true. And he explained why. And the dumb fuck Joe Rogan is like, yeah, dummy. You should have thought that prior to burping out that atrocity. It was just such a horrific lie. He might as well have been an Islam bitch and Hamas bitch. The guy's a dumb fuck. He really is. Whatever value he has, I've listened to his shows there and there. Yeah, some good stuff, sure. That was unacceptable. Being a mouthpiece for Hamas. Mass rapists, mass murderers. Horrific. And again, this idea, also one thing, a guy like Tucker Carlson, right? I'm America first. They asked him about 10/7. I'm about America. I'm all about America. They took American hostages. They murdered Americans, Hamas. What's up? An American guy who's all for America would be concerned about that, right? Instead, the bitch goes in a world tour. He goes to the UAE, right? The United Arab Emirates, right? Makes a speech there. Starts kissing Islam's ass. Say, yeah, your religion, it's all about the sincerity. Fuck you. It's all about the sincerity. Yeah, they are sincere. The jihadists are very sincere. I can't stand these pussies on the right when it comes to Islam. Tucker Carlson, when's the last time you ever heard him say anything critical about Islam, Muslims, the Islamic world? Think about it. And again, it's worth saying me. I'm going to repeat, innocent deaths are the fault of the aggressors 100%. Always has been, always will be. You start a war, your people are going to be in danger. Even if they're innocents. We'll try to get the bastards who are responsible, but fallout will happen. Casualties will happen. Jimmy says to Trevor, thank you for your service. As always, Trevor, thank you. Musikant says Saudis, Iranians, and Qataris. Sure. I mean, look, Pakistanis as well. Quote-unquote Palestinians as well. But the biggest and the worst are the Saudis and the Iranians, historically speaking. Maybe Qataris have stepped up their funding game. But those guys, the Saudis and Iranians, the worst of the worst. I have Pigman go into Saudi Arabia and Iran and all these countries, all these hellholes, all these dictatorships in issue 3 of the Infidel when he finally gets the power to do that. Because at first he's just going after Al Qaeda and then he expands it. And I have him go to the mullahs. He calls them Allah, America Akbar, mullah fuckers. Boom. Okay, so Jimmy the Lumberjack says, to Mike Conio, same here in the States, they want more and offer nothing. Yeah, they want everything and offer nothing. They offer nothing to us. Egon the Dragoncock, thank you for your service to Trevor. Absolutely. Also to Diana as well. She served. Me says, ask leftists if they feel bad for innocent Germans in World War II. Right? Absolutely right. Innocent Germans. Egon the Dragoncock says, Iraq was a paper tiger. That's the thing, it was the safest bet. And again, I swear to you, that's my thinking. And I know people have argued, but no. He was he was a bad guy, sure. Was he the guy that funded Al Qaeda that was behind that? No, it was the Saudis and Iranians. It's like, Bush went right past the big guys, went to a small guy, like hold me back type thing. That's where he went. Pop Culture Vendor says so many homes were hanging American flags right after 9/11. Yes, country was really united for a short time, for like a 3-week period. Exactly. For a 3-week period, the left shut their rat traps. They knew it was politically terrible for them to say anything. Anything. And that piece of shit, Jesse Jackson, right, who was involved with some scandal. He had some out-of-wedlock children, right? And so he shut his rat trap and hid. When 9/11 happened, that rat came out and said, hey, I'll speak to the Taliban for peace. Huh? Yeah? That rat. They shut their rat traps, the left, they did, for about 3 weeks. Philip Daniels says, another mistake we made was stopping the investigation of Al Taqwa Bank in Switzerland, founded by Nazi Muslim Ahmed Huber and a likely financier of Islamist terrorism. It's Islamic terrorism. I can't stand the Islamist word. It's such a way to avoid the word. It's like when some people said the Islamist Republic of Iran, it's Islamic. Anyway, there are many things that we didn't do. I mean, think about it. If we were locked into defeating this enemy, how short of a time it would have taken. And when they say, Americans, right, we're tired of 20 years of war, you think we waged war for 20 years? Anyone here does? No. We did everything but wage war. We did everything but defeat the enemy. We got in our own way because of the Islamic, it's Islam, which is very, we got Muslims, peaceful Muslims. Fuck that. Kill the scumbags. Some innocents will be killed. Some non-combatant innocents will be killed. Some people who are not very Muslim will be killed. That's war. You wanted war. You got it. That's the thing about Muslims are, right? They want war until they get it. Then they run like rats. Like Gaza, the rats. They want war. They celebrate it, right? They sent pictures, videos of those they raped and murdered to the families of the phones that they picked up from the innocents. I mean, the only answer to this for Israel is a gravestone that says Hamas. The only answer for us is a gravestone that says Al-Qaeda. The Saudis, the Iranians, all these savages, all these terrorists, the Hezbollah who killed 130, I believe, Marines in their sleep. Reagan, a great president, no doubt, fucked up. He let them get away with it. And that was one of his great regrets. In his memoir, he wrote that. But you can't do that. You can't let Americans die like that and them get away with it. You have to pummel Hezbollah out of existence. That's the only answer. Trevor says to Egon the Dragoncock, thank you. And Jimmy. Mike says, Alex Jones getting fined was a huge hit to the First Amendment protected. We have nothing like that in Oz. I guess you mean Australia. Yep. That's the thing, right? We're always told, America doesn't have this, America doesn't have that. We don't have health care. Yeah. What country has the First Amendment and the Second Amendment? None. We've enshrined that. We knew that they were the end-all, be-all, most important freedoms. Our freedom of speech, to argue, to persuade, to tell the truth, and the principle of self-defense in its ultimate form, with a gun. No country has that. The left want to wipe it out. Mike says, toe Rogan. Absolutely. I can't stand a lot of stuff he says. And then he goes, I endorse Bernie Sanders a few years ago. Fuck you, Joe Rogan, you piece of shit. He goes on the right, until this, and then he goes for RFK instead of Trump because he's more what? He's more articulate? He's not. I mean, you could say a lot about RFK. Articulate? No, not at all. He's nice or something like that. What does that mean? What does that mean? We're not hiring the nice guy in chief, the commander in chief. And Jimmy Lumberjack says to Philip Daniel, money, 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 it's more powerful than the truth and justice. Tragically so. Tragically so. Mike says, I like that you say atrocity. Most people incorrectly say tragedy. Yeah, it is an atrocity. I couldn't stand when people said tragedy. And there were some decent people I know, and I probably bit their head off, but I couldn't stand it. Yeah, they found the WMDs, right? Yeah. Look, I think he may have had him. I remember I think moved into Syria, his boys, right? I believe that's so, but regardless, the left was working they were working against Bush and against the country in a lot of ways. Once your country is engaged in war, our soldiers are engaged in war, that's what it is. That's it. You have to support it. Our soldiers are at risk. I don't support this war. Our soldiers are there. They're fighting. You got to respect that. You might disagree with the war, and I get it. But once the soldiers are in battle, it's like, okay, this is the war that we're in. We've been forced to be committed. Our soldiers are there. Those who are there to defend us. Trevor says, RFK, palatable socialist. Absolutely. No doubt about it. He's a leftist. I mean, that's what he is. He is a socialist. And the only difference between him and these commies is that he has the ability to recognize that America's good, regardless of what he thinks that goodness is. I've not seen him tear down America. I've seen him turn down some institutions, the CIA and all these other ones, yeah. But he still believes, and I mean, look, whatever you think about him also, I don't think much about him, actually. I know that he was very good about vouching and all that. But the fact that this Kennedy guy, right, his name is Kennedy, with that, Camelot, all that bullshit, right, to go for Trump publicly, openly, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for him and for the country. It is. It's like he took a big risk by doing that. He really did. And the word is that his wife, who's leftist, she's the one who talked him into it, because at first he didn't want to talk to Trump, and she goes, "Hear him out. Hear him out." That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Him and then Tulsi Gabbard as well. They're the only semi-rational leftists, and again, they're leftists. Tulsi Gabbard was for Bernie Sanders only a few years ago. We got to keep it in mind. She was for a communist. So they're better. They're like the last remaining semi-rational. Oh, also Dershowitz, right? The Dersh. Love, hate him. Always, right? Good about Trump in some things, good about America, good about free speech, very good about free speech, about our Muhammad cartoon contest that I won. He's very good about that, right? And then he tells us that the government has a right to shove a needle of a fake vaccine into our arms. They have a right to do that. The government. Unacceptable, Dersh. Mr. Constitutionalist. Unacceptable. And then recently, he's not a Democrat anymore. At 8 years old, right? I thought he would die a toe tag leftist. A toe tag leftist? He's not a Democrat anymore, officially. That's it. He's out. Good for him, but of course he won't endorse anyone. So it's like, okay, you're out. Meaning what? You still might endorse? He just can't bring himself to do that. I guess he's too locked in. Philip writes, Tulsi is too pro-Assad for my taste. Yeah, Assad is Iranian puppet. Absolutely. That's the thing, she's better than Biden and Kamala and all these rats. Yes. Outside of that, Flady one says, Tulsi's primary training is psyops, if I remember correctly, so I wouldn't invest too much in her. Yeah, That's the thing. I can take him or leave him. You want to support Trump? Cool. You're going to get some more Americans to vote for him? Cool. That's it. In my history with Trump, I'm going to just tell you guys here, I couldn't vote for him in 2000 as what the hell? And 16. I couldn't do that. I got this stutter, and sometimes it really acts up here. Sorry about that. Couldn't get it out. 2016. I couldn't vote for him. It wasn't just a personal. People said, yeah, it was a personal reason. No, it was a fundamental reason. He, the idiot, after we were almost murdered in the attack, right, in Garland, Texas, he went on television and said, television 4 or 5 times. What are they doing, Jalal Muhammad? Come on. Can't you do something better? Can't you draw something different? All that bullshit, right? I said, fuck you. I said, you're, talking about running for president because he didn't officially run yet. I said, to hell with you. And it's a fundamental issue to me, free speech. It's life or death for civilization. It is. Life or death. And this idiot couldn't back it. So, couldn't back him. To hell with him. 2020, had to. Still wasn't crazy about him. This time, I'm all in. I feel like it's my patriotic duty to vote for him. The man has gone through hell. He's still standing. Gets shot. Stands up. Fight. Come on. I mean, that's heroic. That's heroic. You don't see that kind of heroism. It's powerful. So I'm all in. It took me a while. Believe me, because I can't stand politicians. Can't stand them. And he is a politician no matter what. He is a politician at this point. He's been running for, his 3rd time he's running. Then it says, for those of us who are veterans, there's no expiration date on the oath that we took to protect and defend the Constitution. And as a woman, Islam loves women so much that they rape them. Hell no. That's right. And they hate women so much, right? And what do? They murder for 72 quote-unquote women, right? Mike says, the sad thing is that I have to explain to gays and women that under an Islamic caliphate is that I, as a bearded straight man, is suffered the least. True. It's true. I mean, it's crazy and true. Even though, it's funny with Muslims, right? There's always the forbidden, and then there's forbidden to a point, right? Like homosexuality. There's open homosexuality in Afghanistan, some areas in the Islamic world, there is. They have this thing called ashnas, which is young boys that these men have sex with. And they said they're not gay because they're the ones doing the pigeon, right? It's unbelievable. EYERESSSS according to the Quran, most of the people in hell are women. Absolutely true. Muhammad, right? He flew on his horse with a demon head. I forgot what it was. I drew it out once, actually. And he flew, right? He peered into hell, right? Most of its inhabitants are women. And he was asked by his wives, plural, right? Why are most, in hell women? It was because they don't listen to their husband. Well, what a clown. I mean, if he wasn't as violent as he was, people would be laughing. That's why they got violent, right? To kill the laughter. It's so stupid. Jimmy writes, yes, the gay support for Muslims makes no sense at all. It doesn't. And again, they hate gays, right? They kill them. They do. They throw them off roofs. And then they practice it. And no one does anything about it. In Afghanistan, in particular. The ashnas, they call it. It's pretty sick. These are pedophiles with young boys on the side of their wives. And also the Quran has an element there which, it jumped out at me because, you hear about the 72 virgins, right? The houris. And then you hear about the boys as beautiful as pearls who are servants in paradise. And I drew them for a Quran adaptation for a Danish publisher a number of years ago. And so I drew these boys. And They're as beautiful as pearls. That was him trying to appeal to the homosexuals of his time to try to get them in on jihad. It truly was. Yep. Wives, child brides, yeah. Wives, exactly. And they say, well, his favorite wife, Muhammad's favorite wife was Aisha. That's how we pronounce it in Albania. I have an aunt named Aisha. And his wife, he married her when she was 6. He raped her when she was 9. There was no consent there. She was a young girl. Jimmy says, what I thought sheep were Islamic sex toys. What? Well, I thought, I guess the new school Muslims like boys. They do, actually. They do. It is something. And there were also elements of Muhammad as well, with some guys. There were some, some scandals in that area as well. Me, right, speaking for the First Amendment, what the fuck happened to Penn from, you know what? I'm glad you say that, because I got to show you guys. This is years ago. That Truth Teller, right? The show called Bullshit, right? He had a show called Bullshit, as in going after everyone else's bullshit. Not his bullshit, everyone else's, right? And he goes after Christianity and Judaism and Islam. No, because I have a family, is what he said. I have family. People have family. Islam critics have family. So I made a cartoon of him. That show Bullshit, Bullshit-er. Islam's sword mightier than pen. I made with that idiot face that they used to make. And I was in the green room on Red Eye years ago. And he was a guest. I was like, oh, let me show you a cartoon I drew of you. And I showed him, and he was like, that's pretty good. Like that, right? And then I told him, I said, I criticized you. I said, you're an anti-religion guy, right? Why not Islam? Well, they'll kill you. I said, yeah. That's why. That's why. At least Bill Maher, the piece of shit that he is, at least he goes after all religion. He doesn't pick spots, hates Islam, calls it out. Good for him. This guy, Penn Jillette, a hack, absolute hack. He banned me, blocked me on X, by the way, well, Twitter years ago, when I called him out, because he said, it pissed me off, because he said, he actually said this on episode 1, I think a Bullshit episode, where he was talking about Ayn Rand. He goes, I want to fuck Rand. I want to fuck her. And I was like, what the fuck's he talking about? I said, okay, you're that disrespectful of Ayn Rand. I said, what do you have to say about Muhammad? He goes, nothing. I have family, something. He goes, I'm a coward. People are like, hey, he was honest. I said, no. He's trying to replace his cowardice by saying, I'm a coward, meaning it's not honesty. To be a coward is to say I'm a coward and just leave it at that. Don't call him honest for saying that. He is a coward. That's not a good thing to be. That's not honest. So what? I'm dishonest for going after Islam for the last years and years and years. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you're honest. Yeah, he's not. He's a guy who goes after all religions, right? Full throttle, and then pulls back when it comes to Islam. So, oh no, I can't go after that. He loses credibility, if he ever had any, to begin with. Trevor writes, Afghanis have a huge thing for pretty young boys. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And I remember reading accounts of some soldiers who wanted to punish these savages for raping boys, because they had to suffer through the sounds of this. They had to suffer through the sounds of this. They wanted to punish them, and they were not allowed to. The things our soldiers had to deal with because of our gutless cowards in Washington, that story has to be told. It has to be told. Jimmy Lumberjack writes, well, I'm going to have to recycle Jared from Subway jokes and insert Muslims. I know. It's one thing after another. You go deeper into Islam, my God, the things you find out. Egon the Dragoncock says, we should grant queers for Palestine their wish and send them over there. Yeah, please, go. Go, 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 go. Go all the way, guys. Don't go for Palestine in the safety of America. Go to Gaza. Maybe Gaza, right? Huh? Maybe start calling it Gaza. They might do something about that. I just, I don't know. It's been about 2 hours, almost 2 hours. So if you guys have any more comments or questions, thanks for being here. That date is just to me, yeah, it's a day that will live in infamy and all that. But personally speaking, it's the day that just made me revisit Islam. I left Islam a number of years before that, and that was the thing that brought me back there. And I studied it as if my life depended on it, because I knew I would respond to it. I wasn't a soldier. I didn't intend to be a soldier, even at the time. I was like, I'm a writer. I'm an artist. That's what I'm going to do. And most, some soldiers are very respectful of that, and they've been very, very kind to me. Some, dismiss me. You're just a fucking cartoonist. You're a pussy. It's like, okay, what are you going to do? And also, you criticize Bush. Yeah, he was a piece of shit. He didn't unleash you guys. That's why I criticize him. But I guess that's it. I'll wait a minute if anyone has any more comments. Thanks for the give and take, because it really sparked some good give and take here, guys. I really appreciate it. I wouldn't have discussed some of the things if you didn't mention them. So thank you. All right, guys. Again, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. And again, I did this drawing today of the warlord who started this entire mess. He's about to get his in this drawing. Thanks, Jimmy. He goes, no, thank you, Bosch, for talking about this today. Cheers. Thank you. I appreciate you guys being here. I really do. Thank you. Egon the Dragoncock, thanks, Bosch. Looking forward to your future videos. Absolutely. Thanks, Egon. Thanks for being here, guys. I think some of you here were new, so I really appreciate that. Thank you. Good stream, everyone. Thanks you. Thanks, guys. You guys take care. Be well. Until next time.